Oh, stop right now. Thank you very much. I hope that you are well. We're getting into the French Grand Prix. I'm apologising already for being a couple of minutes late. My car broke down this morning. Of course it did. You know, just the sort of things you don't plan for in life. Come in, sock you around the jaw, and make sure you're prepared. I hope you enjoyed the new thumbnail. I'm trying some new stuff out. Also, want to say thank you so much for edging ever closer to 2,000 subscribers. Ridiculous that last Sunday I did my 1,000 subscriber stream to say thank you. And we're 800 more than that now. Insane. Ridiculous. Absolutely mental. I don't even know. I missed Q3, free practice 3. Because I was in the middle of a road somewhere trying to get a man to come and pick me up in a van. So I have no idea what's happened on free practice 3. So let me actually find out what is happening in the world of Formula One. Has there been anything of note, any incidents that have happened in free practice? Possibly. Let's have a look. Free practice 3. French Grand Prix. My goodness me. Daniel Ricciardo. I feel like this could be the weekend for Daniel Ricciardo. If you haven't seen my video on Daniel Ricciardo, I'm feeling optimistic. I think he's just been very... I don't know whether it's unlucky or whether... I don't know. Just things haven't really been going his way, have they? And I don't think that's overly been his fault as much as he's just getting used to the car. And he's been compared to Lando Norris, who's been absolutely flying. And, you know, when you're being compared to someone like Lando Norris, when they're having start of the season of their lives, you know, it's very tricky. Wow, Verstappen 7/10 quicker in free practice. 7/10 quicker from Verstappen in pre-practice. That's crazy. I had not seen that. Sainz goes third fastest as well. Hamilton all the way down in 5th in terms of this last free practice. What else happened? Ocon and Alonso looking good. 7th, 8th. Gasly looking all right in the top 10. There you go. Ricciardo in the top 10, although only 10th when Norris is 6th. Not amazing reading, especially when Leclerc is just behind you. I'd imagine Leclerc is going to get it together. Be interesting to see how the Aston Martins do this weekend, or whether like Monaco and Baku really suited the car, or whether they've actually taken steps forward. Because Baku and Monaco very similar sort of street style circuits, and therefore might just work better with the car that they've got in front of them. Mazepin down at the bottom. Oh, and Mazepin had a spin. Mazza spin with one more spin, of course. Crazy. Okay, so I feel like I've caught up on free practice 3 there. Apologies that I feel like as a person who's hosting the stream should probably know like the ins and outs of what's going on. But as I said, car breakdown was pretty much on fire a couple of hours ago. So a tricky one to get here. Let's have a look then at the Drivers' Championship moving into this weekend. And if you haven't seen on the channel this week, I've done a video on Valtteri Bottas and a video on Daniel Ricciardo. Because for me, they were the two in the 20 there that really sort of stuck out to me. They were the two that just didn't seem quite right, maybe, or didn't seem to be, where I would have expected them to be when I was looking at it earlier in the season. So I've been focusing on those two with the videos that I've made. And yeah, I was maybe a little bit harsher on Bottas than I was on Ricciardo. So Bottas, I think, is in a bit of a position where he's in a lot more pressure. Mainly because, Mercedes and Red Bull are having a real scrap for this Constructors' Championship. Verstappen and Hamilton are having a real scrap for the Drivers' Championship. And Hamilton is going to need a teammate that is going to be there to back him up in those fights against the Red Bulls. Red Bull have got options if they've got both of their drivers in and around the same position as Hamilton, and Hamilton hasn't got somebody else to back him up. So Mercedes do have an issue there in that if Bottas can't show that he's going to be there to at least help Hamilton, even if he's not going to go on to win races himself, then it's a little bit tricky for him. So I sort of talked about Bottas. I think he's been a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit unfortunate in that realistically he'd have maybe picked up a couple of points in Imola. Yes, he was maybe down in 8th, 9th, 10th place, but a couple of points is a couple of points. And also in Monaco, you'd imagine he'd have picked up maybe a 2nd place, 3rd place. And he's only 20 points behind Norris. You know, those 20 points, if he gets those 20 points in Monaco, suddenly we're looking at Bottas in 4th place in the championship. Norris and Leclerc obviously dropped down a little bit because they'd have missed out on the point, or Norris in particular would have missed out on those points that he got in Monaco. So it's tricky with Bottas at the minute. And then similarly for Ricciardo, I talked about Ricciardo in my video because, again, if you're comparing him and Norris, that 40-point gap seems like quite a lot. You know, am I looking at Daniel Ricciardo? We're about a third of the way through the season now, 6 races in. You know, we're properly a third of the way season after this race. We've got the triple header. We're moving into the mid-season break almost. And I think Daniel Ricciardo is one of those ones that people are going to have their eye on as to if he hasn't made the step up and hasn't really shown his quality by the time we get to the mid-season break, what do Mercedes do in that case? Do, you know, Mercedes start to look at different things there? This race, Bottas is good. Yeah, Bottas has been pretty good in the free practices, right? So free practice 1, he was at the top there. Free practice 3, I've just read, 2nd place. And I think this could be a turning point for Bottas. Obviously, we've got the insight that we've swapped the chassis at Mercedes. So obviously that chassis had quite the impact at Imola when Bottas hit into Russell and then obviously hit the wall also. So Hamilton now with that chassis that's been for a little bit of a bump, and Bottas has been given Hamilton's chassis. So they've completely switched the two. Toto Wolff talking about how that was just general what they do. Is at that point of the season. We talked about this from the start of the season. It was always going to happen like this. But still interesting. If Hamilton is really struggling and it goes down to, you know, that change of chassis, are we going to look back later on in the season and be like, was that a bit of a weird point in the season for Mercedes? Was that a little bit of a strange thing to do at that time? Seto, can see Russell working with Hamilton. I think that's the thing. Russell is so competitive. Russell is so... he just wants to win, right? Russell is one of those characters on the grid that you can just see he wants to beat his teammate every single race. You know, he does not let Latifi have a second. He outperforms Latifi in qualifying every single time. He has not given Latifi 1 ounce of space to, you know, push him into that next sort of vein of form. Russell has been relentless at continually beating Latifi over and over. So I just feel like if he moved to Mercedes, we're also in that position where does Russell start to get in the way of Hamilton a little bit? Especially when Verstappen is, you know, technically leader of the championship at this point by 4 points. You could argue Red Bull have been in the better car over the last few weekends. I personally think that. I think the Red Bull car looked better in Baku. The Red Bull car looked better in Monaco. You know, especially when comparing Verstappen to Hamilton over those last few races. But it's going to be difficult to see. I can't see Russell coming in mid-season. I think Valtteri would have to do something really, really silly. I think Valtteri would have to do something almost crazy to warrant him moving into the Mercedes seat in replace of Bottas. And I think Bottas, yes, this might be his final season. I think it probably should be. I think it's all over for him when it comes to the end of this season. But all in all, Bottas has been a very good driver for Mercedes, and he needs to be given that little bit of extra time, maybe a chance this season, just to, you know, show that quality one more time. Be nice if he could get one more win. round out his wins to 10 Grand Prix rather than 9. Be a nice round number for him, 10 trophies in the cabinet. It would look really nice. Dad Not Daddy. Hey mate, are you alright? How's it going? Max wins. Lewis gets curse of 7 years. Yeah, maybe. I think if Max wins the drivers' championship, there will be quite a few changes at Mercedes, I'd imagine. They'll see that as an opportunity to make changes if needs be. So, you can't really argue with them keeping Bottas for this long, considering they've been continually winning Constructors' Championships. Hamilton's been winning titles. Bottas has been winning races here and there. You can't really argue with them keeping a working format. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, that kind of thing. If it does break this year, if they miss out on the Constructors, Hamilton misses out on the Drivers' Championship, then, you can argue maybe it is broke, at least for this season. Let's see what we can fix in terms of, can we get this together for a different style next season, and work through it a different way next season as well. So we're 15 minutes from the start. And yeah, so that's my sort of take on Bottas and Ricciardo. Obviously, if you want a little bit more detail than that, I do have those 2 videos on my channel, and I think linked in the description down below if I managed to get that done before the stream started. But as we look at it, Verstappen has a 4-point lead on Hamilton. Hamilton then quite a little gap to Perez. So Perez is going to have to bring out some real performances and pick up quite a few points if he's going to put his name in and amongst Verstappen and Hamilton for the Drivers' Championship. And then Norris having an insane start to the season. 66 points, 4th place in the Drivers' Championship. Just got to tip your hat to Norris. He's the only driver that has got points in every single one of those 6 races. I think he's probably going to get points this weekend as well. I'd be surprised if he was outside the points this weekend. So I think, Norris could be there. Perez doesn't seem to be enjoying this track. Yeah, that's very true. He doesn't seem to be enjoying this track. We'll actually get to that in my predictions later. Baku is an exceptionally good track for Perez. We've seen over and over again. But he still had to go out and win it. And Perez has not been too far off the pace, considering, it's a brand new team for him. He's learning the new car. Yes, he struggled in Imola a bit, you could argue. But it was wet. And as soon as you've got wet conditions in a brand new car, 2 races into a season, always going to be a pretty tricky battle for you to be having, to be honest. Where were we? So Norris, 66 points. Leclerc in 5th place with 52. And then Bottas, 6th place. Even if that was 5th place, I think it just makes it look like he's closer. Those 2 places away from Perez, 22 points. That's effectively a race win that Bottas is behind Perez now. Once you'll get into more than 25 points between 2 drivers, that's quite a bit to make up. Especially if you're considering, both drivers are probably going to be finishing in and around the podium positions continually. Bottas has got quite a bit to make up on Perez there. Sainz having a great start to his Ferrari life and helping to put Ferrari obviously into 3rd place in the Constructors in 7th place. Gasly showing his quality. Best of that midfield sort of pack, in my opinion. You could argue, obviously, Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren are in their own, or you could even argue that Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari and McLaren are in their own separate leagues to each other at the moment. And then AlphaTauri being held up by Gasly there with 31 points in 5th place in the Constructors. Gasly in 8th place. What an amazing driver Gasly is, by the way. I just absolutely bloody love him. Vettel with that podium last time out gets himself up to 28 points. 2 incredibly good finishes in the last couple of races, picking up 10 points and 18 points in the last 2. Puts himself there in 9th. If you're in the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, you're doing very well in a midfield car. And then Ricciardo, 26 points. Can't be overly disappointed, continually inside the points. I think Monaco's the only time he hasn't scored a point. but he's just not had any outstanding points finish. You know what I mean? It's been, 4 points, 5 points, 6 points here and there. Well, not 5 points. You can't get 5 points, but you know what I mean? It's been continual little bouts of points that he's been picking up throughout the season. Whereas if you look at Vettel comparatively, Vettel's had 2 astounding races and has picked up more points. So I think Ricciardo just needs that one push to really take himself up the standings. But again, in the top 10, so we'll be fairly happy with that, I think. Especially because McLaren, only 2 points behind Ferrari at this point. And if you look at the difference between Ricciardo and Sainz and Ricciardo and Leclerc, there's quite a bit of a gap that he can make up there. So it could get interesting in that mid or that sort of second tier battle between Ferrari and McLaren. Alonso and Ocon, consistent. Alpines just look consistent, don't they? They look pretty good continually throughout the season. Obviously, Ocon missing out in Baku a little bit. Alonso having trouble in Bahrain and obviously having to DNF. But apart from that, they do just look like pretty solid cars, the Alpines. And I think, again, they'll be in and amongst that battle, actually, with AlphaTauri, Aston Martin. I think Alpine just need that one race where they can get those points, Vettel picking up a podium, Gasly picking up a podium. Could Ocon pick up a podium before the end of the season and then, put themselves a little bit more into contention with AlphaTauri and Aston Martin? Possibly. Then we have Tsunoda, again, getting used to Formula One. He started his brand new diet, has Tsunoda, and also moved into Italy. So Tsunoda's got some big learning curves coming up for him in the next few weeks, but I think he'll take that little step forward, and Tsunoda will hopefully be a little bit better. Raikkonen and Gio both picking up a point this season. I'm impressed. I'm impressed with Alfa Romeo. You've got to put your hat in the ring. Like, let's be honest. Should they have got those points? Would they have got those points if everybody finished? No. But you've got to put yourself in and amongst, that 11th, 12th, 13th place continually. And if you can do that, then you're going to pick up a point here and there. They've been able to do that, put themselves, Raikkonen and Giovinazzi, a point each. Very, very well done. Mick Schumacher finds himself 17th with the highest finish of the 4 guys on 0 points. Russell 18th, Mazepin 19th, and Latifi rounding out the 20. So yeah, just my general thoughts on everybody there. I think if we're looking at people who maybe need to pick up some points this weekend, just, to really stamp their authority back in their team, we're looking at Tsunoda and Stroll, right? And Ricciardo. Those guys, compared to their teammates, you could argue are having a little bit of a tough time. Let's have a look at your comments then. Norris is going to be consistent. Also love his gaming streams. Yeah, I mean, everybody loves Lando Norris. He just seems like a really nice guy. Can't argue with that. Will Alpine continue to be Friday, Saturday champions? Possibly, I think Friday is always really tricky to actually gain anything from practice. No one really knows anything after a practice session because you don't know whether they're running high fuel loads, whether they're running a different setup, they're trying something completely different. So yeah, Alpine, I mean, Alonso and Ocon are there, right? They're breaking that sort of pattern of the AlphaTauris, Aston Martins. They're in and amongst them. And as I said, I think if they can just get one standout performance, a bit like Gasly's got a podium, Vettel's got a podium. If Alonso can get a podium or Ocon can get a podium, then they're much more in the mix again with the AlphaTauri, Aston Martin, Alpine sort of battle for 5th place in the Constructors. Hello, Connor, mate. You're right. Gasly moving to Renault in the future. No, probably not now because Ocon has signed that 3-year contract, right? So Ocon is going to be there for the foreseeable. If Alonso leaves, possibly. But I think they got Alonso in for a very specific reason. I think they got Alonso in to help quite a lot with next year's car. As great as Alonso is, he has that experience, knows cars inside and out. He's been at various teams. He's been at World Championship winning teams, and therefore will have a little bit more insight into just Formula One in general. And I think that's why they brought Alonso in. So I can imagine Alonso still staying for that next year. Gasly is looking a little bit difficult for him. If he wants to leave AlphaTauri at the end of this year, not really sure where he ends up, to be honest. I'd love to know where you think Gasly might end up in the comments. Really thought Gasly would be at Alpine. I thought so too. I thought he would have ended up at Alpine, but he's not going to be at Alpine because they've signed that contract with Ocon, and Ocon is going to be Alpine's man for the next few years by the looks of things. They've signed a 3-year contract. It's a pretty long contract when it comes to Formula One. We see lots of teams do, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Like Mercedes, for instance, they always do 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. And it just gives them that opportunity. Gasly does deserve to be in the Red Bull. I agree. He won't be. He's just put himself in too weird a position. Like, Christian Horner's not a fan of him. The team doesn't seem to be overly a fan of him. AlphaTauri bloody love him. But the Red Bull guys just seem to be a little bit off with him, right? So they just don't really, I don't know, can't see Gasly there. And yeah, Ocon is not going to be moving to Mercedes. Yes, he's affiliated with Mercedes. And I sort of put out the question about Ocon and Mercedes a few weeks ago. Might have been a week or so ago, where I said, what does Ocon need to do to possibly, displace the whole Russell rumour? Actually, in a Formula One world that we live in at the moment, I can't see Mercedes ever getting towards looking at an Ocon for a seat. Yes, he's managed by Toto Wolff, as you said, but he's not going to ever get into that Mercedes program again, is he? Another question: do I think Vettel broken Stroll? Since Vettel got points, Stroll dropped out from the top 10, finished even. Oh, maybe. I don't think so. I think Stroll's just having a couple of poor races. You got to remember, Stroll's a pretty good mid-tier driver for me. I don't think Stroll's ever going to, be fighting for titles or anything like that. But I could see Stroll being a good mid-tier driver for a very, very long time. And Vettel's just come in. Vettel's had 2 exceptionally good drives. And especially when it comes to Monaco, I think Monaco really showed Vettel's still got a little bit in him, right? So with Monaco, you need that guile. You need a little bit of something to go your way. You need a little bit of experience around Monaco. I think that's why it's sort of seen as the jewel in the crown of Formula One, isn't it? Monaco really does separate out, those that have a little bit more tenacity about them, as opposed to, overtaking skill. It's more about how shrewd you can be in your pit stops and how shrewd you can be with your tyres and in and around the people that are there with you. But I think Vettel just has had a couple of good races, and we'll see if he can sort of carry that momentum forward. I'd love him to carry that momentum forward. But also we don't know whether it's just the Aston Martin car worked very well on the street circuit style where he was. And also you can't really blame Stroll for last time, actually. You can't blame Stroll for Baku. His tyres gave out and he was driving very well. Could have easily picked up a couple of points, I'd imagine. Could have maybe got himself in and amongst sort of 9th, 10th, that kind of place. Considering he started from the back of the grid. Very quickly, I've just realised I rambled on about that so much. Let's have a quick look at the track, because there's a lot of track limits to be talking about, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit more during Q1. But Q1 and Q2, Q3, and throughout the weekend, track limits in Turn 1, Turn 2, Turn 3, Turn 5, Turn 8, and Turn 9. So a good hefty amount of track limit that the guys are going to be looking at. And I think it adds a little bit of spice to qualifying, to be fair. We've seen, Norris in Imola getting what we thought was going to be, front row of the grid, 3rd place, something around there, if I remember correctly. And then it got snatched away from him. We could see something similar today. Where we think a time is exceptionally good, and then we realise actually they've gone over the track limits. But also on top of the track limit stuff, they've put all the bollards up, they've put the sleeping policeman up, and we've already seen quite a lot of cars take some damage from spinning out or going over the sleeping policeman style bumps around the corners. Lots of debate as to whether they should be there, causing literally hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of damage. Broken, I think it was Max Verstappen's floor, Valtteri Bottas's wing in the free practices already. So we could see some parts fly when it comes to this qualifying session, if people manage to sort of push themselves that little bit wider. Before the blowout, yeah, he was doing pretty well, to be honest. And he's always struggled in Monaco. Yeah, I think Vettel, as I was saying, Vettel's done well, but I don't think we can really take away from Stroll. Stroll was driving well, and then the tyre breaks. That's it. It's a bit rubbish, really, isn't it? I am enjoying the Russell Bottas debate, though. I do enjoy a little bit of that kind of thing where we talk about, is Bottas good enough? Is he not good enough? Like, obviously he's good enough. He's one of the best drivers that is on the world right now. Like, otherwise you wouldn't get into Formula One. But I don't know. Lots of people looking at Bottas. And you know what? I did a video on Bottas. I did a video on Ricciardo. So I figured they bloody well deserve to be on my predictions board. This is what I've gone for the weekend. I've gone for a classic Hambotver for the podium. I think we're going to go back to just our normal 2018, 2019 selves. And go back to classic Hambotver for this race here. I've also, gone for the French lads. I put Gasly to finish in the top 5. Is it likely? Maybe not. Do I wish it happens? Yes, I'd bloody love it. I've got Ricciardo top 10. I was hesitating putting Ricciardo top 5. I think Ricciardo needs a top 5 finish to be able to, really start to look at this team, look at the McLaren car and be like, I'm going to push this car, this team to another level. It is not going to be Norris. It's going to be me that carries you a little bit forward. I think Ricciardo needs a top 5. I think if he finishes 6th, that is a good weekend. So that's why I've just sneaked him into the top 10 prediction there, because I'd like to see him finishing 6th. Oh, Bottas will get pole. I like that. I like that as a prediction. Maybe I should do a pole prediction, to be fair. I always do my predictions for like the weekend. So I always do my predictions on the Thursday morning before I've seen any of the free practices. And I just throw it out there into the world. If you say things enough, they eventually come true. So I could see Hamilton winning, getting back on form a little bit. After a couple of races where he's been very, very hard done by. Monaco just didn't work for him. He tried to pit early and it just didn't go right. Similar, Baku, pit stop went wrong for him. Gasly got in the way. Wasn't really his fault. Was it the team's fault? They can't really predict when Gasly's going to come in, so possibly not. And then the mistake in Baku, obviously setting his brake bias to the wrong thing, driving off on turn 1. I think Hamilton needs a result this weekend to just get back into the swing of things a little bit. So I've gone for Hamilton first, Bottas second, and Verstappen, I think, needs to stay within reach of Hamilton in the championship. So I'd like him to finish 3rd. So what would that do? That would put Hamilton just ahead in the championship, but it would still keep it very, very tight. Gasly top 5, Ricciardo top 10, and Ocon, the French boy in the French car at the French Grand Prix. It can't go wrong for him, right? It never goes wrong. Home Grand Prix are always good for all the teams. So I've gone for Ocon as my wild card, and I think he's going to have a pretty good weekend overall. Will Williams turn into Mercedes B team? Possibly. I mean, you could already argue that they half of it is, right? So they have jurisdiction over that the Russell seat. So Williams don't really get to decide who goes in that seat. Mercedes decide who goes in that second Williams seat. And obviously the Latifi seat is the Williams sort of branded seat, I guess you could say. Yeah, Hamilton and Bottas have switched chassis. So it shouldn't make too much of a difference. Obviously, they make the cars as identical as they can possibly be. Toto Wolff has talked about how the chassis switch was something that they planned weeks and weeks and weeks ago. It's something that just does happen. That is just a thing throughout the season that they do. It'll be interesting, actually, because we've got to remember that Bottas chassis took a little bit of a battering in Imola. Obviously, smashed into George Russell and then went off of the track. So it'd be interesting to see if there's any real difference, and if Hamilton or Bottas sort of have a little bit of a change of fate over the course of this weekend because of that switch. Has the no blame culture at Mercedes disappeared? Yeah, a little bit. I think it's a no blame culture until Toto Wolff decides that he just wants to let off some steam in the press room. Yeah, it looks like, unfortunately, when it comes to the no blame policy, that is sort of unless Toto Wolff decides that he'd like to blame someone on the day. But I feel like it's more of an internal thing, right? So you never hear them blame the engineers or anything. You never hear them call out like an engineer. So you could argue they could have called out the engineer who was on the front right tyre for Bottas in Monaco. But, we didn't hear any press about that. We didn't hear anything about that engineer or the fact that they've lost their job or something ridiculous, There is no blame culture. So we're a couple of minutes in. People coming out onto the track. Gasly the first, now setting a fast lap. We're on board with him. As you can see from my predictions, I'd very much like Gasly to be going well this weekend. I think I just like Gasly. Oh, there's a yellow flag in sector 1. Oh no. It's Tsunoda. Tsunoda's in the barriers. Oh, he's going to start from the back of the grid again. It's not looking good for Tsunoda, is it? Oh, and he's red flagged it. Session's red flagged after, 3 minutes? I don't think anybody set a good time yet. Wow. 3 minutes and 41 seconds. Yuki Tsunoda. He spun round pretty heavily there. Where is that? Where on earth? Wow, that's the second time this season, though, isn't it? Going through turn 1, turn 2. Oh, he just gets onto the curbs a little bit, just spins around, and just bumps the back into the barrier. I think he'll be okay. But, oh, yeah. That is not good. So, second time that Tsunoda is going to be out during qualifying. That means he's going to start from the back of the grid then. So we can chuck Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri into our little grid that we put together. Where are we? Let me actually get that set up. That was something I hadn't done. Also, if I have to take a call from the garage because my car has exploded, then apologies, I will have to take that during the thing. Oh, Tsunoda's trying to restart the car. Ooh. It's always Bottas's fault. Yeah, a little bit. Unfortunately so. I can't sort of... Yeah, he does blame Bottas quite a few... He's blamed Bottas a few times this season for various bits and pieces. But unfortunately, when Lewis has won you X amount of world titles, what is it, like 5 world titles in the last 6 years, you can't really argue with him that much. You can't. Oops, Tsunoda on the radio. Release the clutch. Oh, they're trying to get the car restarted. Oh, no. He's given up. Ooh. He's just spun around. It's such a weird incident to see. Did he hit the yellow curb? Ah, yeah, you're right. That front left, just jinked on the yellow curb. Really tricky for him, actually. Oh. I just don't know how he's spun like that. It seems like a weird area of the track to lose yourself in that way. Like, he's completely spun and drifted effectively around the corner. Yeah, really good. Yuki is overrated. Wow. Imagine if you just said that after Bahrain. Literally, everyone was on the Yuki hype train after Bahrain, weren't they? Everyone was thinking, oh, Yuki Tsunoda coming in, doing well. First race of the season. Then he's done well again in Baku. Another point score and finish. Obviously, tricky qualifying, but got into Q3. Really tricky, though. Like, you got to feel for Tsunoda at this point. The pressure is just piling in on him, just keeps piling on and piling on and piling on, and he just can't really seem to do anything right at the moment, can he, Yuki Tsunoda? Like, since Bahrain, he hasn't, I don't know, I haven't seen anyone talk about him doing anything right. It seems to just be all the time, he's, talking about Yuki Tsunoda, should he still be there? When will Yuki Tsunoda be replaced? Will Yuki Tsunoda be replaced? Bless him. But, they're picking up the car now, and hopefully we get in. Let's see then the onboard. And he's just got to the apex. Oh, we get so much curb. He gets so much curb. Like, we're looking at that bollard. That bollard is maybe like 2 inches from the tyre. Really, really tricky. Yeah, Ilott should be in F1, but sometimes you win some, you lose some, and Ilott, unfortunately, has just been that one driver this season that's missed out. I think if you think about COVID and stuff as well, it's tricky, right? It's tricky because he is definitely good enough for Formula One, but there isn't really a seat I can see that has his name on it. So it is tricky. When Yuki can't beat Gasly next year, he'll probably done with Red Bull. Talent done. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't know if it was too early for Yuki, He's very, very young. Very, very young. Alonso second row, Danny Rick out in Q2 again. Wow. That is a hell of a prediction. That is a hell of a prediction. If Alonso gets onto the second row of the grid, I will be stunned. Like, he's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. But I'll be stunned if he can get to a second row. And Danny Rick, I think, gets into Q3. I believe in Danny Rick this weekend. I've got a little bit of reinvigorating. I looked into the stats of Danny Rick. He's finished pretty much consistently, 7th, 8th position, bar that 12th place in Monaco. And I think Danny Rick's gonna find a little bit of pace this weekend. Just a tiny little bit. That'd be good. Little bit of pace this weekend for Danny Rick. Into Q3. Solid top 10 finish. Finishes 6th. 6th in the race. And ahead of Norris. Yeah, Red Bull is a tricky one, to be fair. If I was a Red Bull driver, the pressure that comes under you, even in AlphaTauri, just being part of the Red Bull franchise, just being part of the Red Bull driver academy, that they're so cutthroat, and you've seen it consistently. You've seen Albon be chucked out completely effectively. You've seen Gasly, given his opportunity and then sent packing. It is really hard to stand out at Red Bull. Max Verstappen's been the one in the most recent years. You could argue, Vettel was probably the one before that. Apart from that, there's no real standouts that have come through the Red Bull Academy and been able to really stamp their authority on the grid. Usually they end up somewhere else. You know what I mean? A lot of the grid is made up of Red Bull drivers. They're good at finding talent. They're good at finding exceptional drivers, but they struggle to take that step up internally, right? So usually you end up with them having to move on at some point, or they miss out. You're looking at Albon. Albon didn't really do that much wrong. A lot of the time, the reason that he lost out on results was because Hamilton drove into him. So you can't really argue Alex Albon. Will they replace Tsunoda with Albon later on in the season? Will Tsunoda just keep getting opportunity after opportunity? It's going to be so hard to see. Yeah, Apollo, Tsunoda's crash. So just out of turn 1, got so much curb. 3 minutes and 41 seconds into the session. So no one has actually set a time yet. And we're just getting restarted. So the guys are just going to come out into the track now. And the time has just restarted. So we're at 14:19 for me. We've got Leclerc and Sainz at the start of the pit lane, getting ready to go, getting that green light almost ready. No, Danny Ric isn't having the best start to the season, but not as bad as people are making out. If you see my Danny Ric video, you'll notice actually he's been pretty consistent at finishing in the points. He's just not had a highlight yet. He hasn't had a highlight race. You know, if you're looking at Norris, a couple of podiums. If you're looking at Vettel, he's got a podium. Gasly's got a podium. Ricciardo just needs like a highlight race, so a one race where he really looks like he's going to stand out above the rest. And I think then Danny will look a little bit more comfortable. People will start to give him a little bit less stick in the car, because I think he's been fairly consistent, pretty good. In a similar vein to Bottas. That's why I made those 2 videos this week. I think both of those drivers are in a similar sort of position to one another, where they just haven't had like a super standout race where people are remembering them for that this season. And therefore it's a bit trickier for them. Feel bad for Albon. Yeah, me too. He never really got a chance. You know, he's up against Max. When you're up against Max, and Max is, you know, Mr. Red Bull, gets all the benefit of the doubt, gets everything that is going to come to the car. Yes, if Max is higher in the Drivers' Championship, like we saw with Stroll earlier on in the season, if you're bringing an upgrade package and you can only get it on one of the cars for the weekend, it should go to the driver who is higher in the Drivers' Championship. That is always going to be Max at Red Bull, isn't it? And it's never going to really be the case that anyone else is going to be able to get that opportunity. So Albon he was under so much pressure. He missed out on so many points and podiums and things because of like things that were sort of kind of out of his control. Like we had that incident with Hamilton twice, right? Where Hamilton just bumped him off the road effectively while he was looking really, really good. And yeah, but that's how cutthroat Red Bull can be. And we're looking at Tsunoda now, and it's not looking great for him this season. He's 8 points. I mean, if I go back to the Drivers' Championship, if you're comparing Tsunoda and Gasly, it's harsh reading for Tsunoda at the minute, and needs to maybe step up. I think if we saw Tsunoda replaced by Albon, or even by like, I don't know, Aitken. No. Who's the Red Bull Junior driver that's just gone out of my head? Completely forgotten. Yeah, if we saw Tsunoda replaced by Albon or the like, then I wouldn't be so surprised, just because of how cutthroat Red Bull can be. Would it be a little bit early? Possibly. You know, pretty tricky. Hello, Tom, mate. You're right. Red Bull, yeah, exactly. They raise a good question about drivers program. Someone did a video on it. Was it Tomo who did a video on it? Or maybe Aldous did a video on it. And, you know, the quality that they bring through is insane. If you look down the grid, what is it? 6 or 7 of the drivers on the grid at the moment are Red Bull, or have been at Red Bull, or were part of the Red Bull Junior program in some way. They bring through incredible drivers. The pressure for them to deliver, though, in a Red Bull car is insane. And Red Bull are not hesitant on pulling the trigger if they think that it's not going to get any better. So, for instance, with Tsunoda, they've already completely changed everything. So I was reading about how they've moved him to Italy now. They've put him on a different workout regime. They've put him on a different diet. They've completely changed Tsunoda's lifestyle. They completely changed, you know, Tsunoda in his entirety to try and get him into a place where he'll be a little bit more competitive in the car. And unfortunately, hasn't gone well this weekend so far, in that he is now 20th and is out of Q1 because he stuck it into the wall one corner into his flying lap. So really tricky. Can someone explain the chassis for Mercedes? So basically, they've just switched them. So if you imagine, literally, like they've taken the chassis, they've taken everything above it, and just swapped the cars, everything above the chassis. So Hamilton has Bottas's chassis, and Bottas has Hamilton's chassis. Apparently, it's something that they had decided, but before the season had even started, they said, 7 races in, this is when the swap's going to be made. This will happen here. This will happen here. And Toto Wolff said that it's completely normal, and not anything that we should really be worrying about. But I'm sure that Bottas is probably fairly happy about it. And Hamilton doesn't seem overly happy about it, to be honest. So a little bit of a weird one where Hamilton seems very unhappy about the switch. Bottas seems fairly nonplussed about the switch so far. But Bottas is showing quite a good amount of pace. Hamilton's really struggled so far in these free practices. But we saw a similar sort of thing in Baku, where Hamilton looked like he was struggling in free practice, and then the race, he was actually going really, really well. Yeah, Red Bull they want drivers like Seb and Max. They want people who are going to deliver championships straight away, as early as possible. You're looking at, to be fair, Vettel was in the sport for a little while. He ended up, moving around in a couple of teams, but as soon as he did get that chance in the full Red Bull car, he delivered, right? He just delivered championship after championship after championship. They're looking for the same sort of thing. Max in a different era would probably have done the same, right? You're looking at Max, he'd have probably delivered championships by now if we weren't in a place where, there we go. Track limits already coming into account. So Stroll has had a time deleted for turn 6. Very tricky. Bottas on the radio. Ooh. Bottas saying he'd like to box. And he's going to box. Fair enough. I mean, he's got a pretty good time in there at the moment. If it helps Bottas, Lewis is going to be livid, yeah. If the switch of chassis helps Bottas, Lewis will be absolutely fuming. But I don't know how much it'll really change. And, if you've agreed to something before the season has even started, you can't really go back on it now. Like, if they went back on it, if they didn't change the chassis, effectively what they're saying to Bottas is you're not worth the switch. And that would just completely shatter his confidence after he's had 2 really bad races. So, really tricky for Bottas. He hasn't had a bad race in Monaco, to be fair. That was completely unfortunate. He's had a bad race in Baku. And if you want to completely destroy his confidence after that, then you tell him that he's basically not worth the switch of chassis. And that would have absolutely killed him. Do I think Leclerc will get a pole because of a red flag? I mean, he set a precedent for it. Leclerc has the most poles of anyone this season. Joint first, right? With 2 pole positions. Leclerc at the moment is actually in the elimination zone, although he is now setting a fast lap, and I'd imagine he would get himself up out of that bottom 5. So it'd be interesting to see where Leclerc, Sainz, the guys that have been really doing well in Monaco and Baku, because it's been a street circuit, be interesting to see where their real pace is now. So I'm very interested in Aston Martin. They've had 2 really good races over the street circuits, and I'm interested in Ferrari. Ferrari have really good races, but again, over 2 street circuits. Can they build on that? Can they move that over to what is like a proper racetrack with the runoff area of gods? Like the blue and red sea that is the runoff area around here. So yeah, there's no real... What was it? Because some of the cars, were a little bit hesitant. Maybe the Ferraris were just better in their slow speed corners. And they were sort of showing up in that position. Let's see where Leclerc puts him. Only 11th, actually, Leclerc. So maybe we could see a Ferrari drop out into that elimination zone. It'd be interesting to see. You'd probably assume it's going to be Tsunoda, the 2 Hasses, the 2 Williams, right? But if somebody else does drop down in there, it'd be very, very interesting. Yeah, Red Bull do want just championship drivers as soon as they get into the car, to be honest. Every single Red Bull driver needs to step into the car, be absolutely incredible, and just really, really get the best out of the car within a race or two, which is a big ask from a team like Red Bull, but definitely something that, you know, you could argue they've put themselves in the position where they could sort of warrant asking for that, you know? In the same way that if Russell comes into Mercedes, so if Russell comes into Mercedes and 7 races in, he's had the same kind of performance as Tsunoda, let's say. So let's say, you know, Russell does really well in Bahrain at the first race of the season, and then has a crash in quali in Imola, crash in quali here today, doesn't score points apart from Bahrain and Baku. Tsunoda got 2 points finishes. Let's say Russell does that in a Mercedes. Imagine the questions that are being asked about him at that point, right? I think he would have some questions asked about him. And you know, Red Bull, they're also a Constructors' Championship contending team. Therefore, they kind of have a position where they're at a luxury. Drivers want to be at Red Bull. So they sort of have their choice of drivers. It's so different looking at the teams at the front and the teams at the back, right? If Williams get rid of Russell, they almost struggle to replace him, right? If halfway through next season, Mercedes get rid of Russell, there will be 10 drivers that would want that seat, right? There'd be 10 drivers that are already on the grid that'd be like, yes, put my name in the hat, thank you. Now you're looking at like Gasly, probably Norris or someone like that along those lines. Ricciardo might do, Sainz possibly. There's loads of drivers who possibly are in a position next year where if there's a Mercedes seat up for grabs and Russell isn't good enough, they're jumping to get into that seat. And Red Bull have the same thing. If Max Verstappen, for some reason, decided he just retired tomorrow, there would be so many drivers that are vying for that Red Bull seat, because it's a warranted seat. It's a seat that's fighting for titles, fighting for wins, fighting for Constructors' Championships, fighting for Drivers' Championships. People would want that car. So Red Bull have kind of put themselves in a position where they can ask for that. They can ask for somebody to come in and deliver straight away. Oh, no, I know. No, I'm not saying that Russell will in any way have a similar return to Tsunoda. Obviously, Russell's had so much longer in F1. He's had that consistency in the Williams car. He's shown that, you know, he has got race pace. If we think back to last year when he did drive the Mercedes for a one race, he was doing exceptionally well. I'm not saying that, but just like hypothetically, looking at Tsunoda as an outside perspective on Tsunoda, I think it's fair that Red Bull are looking for quite a lot from their drivers. Gasly in a Mercedes would be amazing. I'd love Gasly in a Mercedes. I think he just fit really nicely. I think he'd look good in the suit. He'd look good in the press conferences and all of the drip. He'd just be good. He'd be an amazing Mercedes driver for me. But I'm biased because I absolutely bloody love Pierre Gasly. That's Stroll. So Stroll, at the moment, does not have a lap time to his name. This is where it gets interesting. So if I take you back to the track board, there are 6 corners that they are looking at track limits for. Obviously, because this track has so much runoff, there will be a lot of incidents where drivers are using that runoff to their advantage, and they need to really think about getting in and amongst it. Oh, Stroll on the radio being told that he really needs to go for it this lap. And I could agree with that, to be fair. Mick Schumacher actually in 14th, though, at the moment. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Bit of Mick Schumacher in Q2. That'd be really nice to see. Vettel will drive for Mercedes. Ooh, maybe. I'm not sure about that one, but maybe. Ocon and Alonso are killing practice. Then Vettel is ahead. Yeah. I think Ocon, you never know though. Oh, yellow flag in sector 2. That is not good for Stroll. Oh no, it's Mick Schumacher. Oh no, I'm gutted for him. That's it, red flag then. And we've only got a minute left, so that'll be all that has been said. Oh no, Mick. I mean, he's got himself into Q2, but not really. Oh, that is so unfortunate for him. Lance Stroll without a time, though. Wow. Oh. Stroll won't have a chance. He will not, no. Yellow flags, red flags now. 22 seconds left in Q1. And Lance Stroll again, starting from the back of the grid. Wow. 2 races in a row for Aston Martin, where Lance Stroll is going to be dropping down into the bottom 5. Wow. That is really unfortunate for him. But, you know, I said it before when we were talking about Leclerc's pole last time out. You've got to set the time early. You've got to set a considerable time early. And then if you need to improve, that's a different thing. Stroll not setting a time at all at this point, or getting his lap time deleted for a mistake, kind of goes on to him. Wow. Really, really interesting then. They expected this from Mazepin. I think everyone's expected Mazepin to be a lot worse than he is. If you actually look over the last 3 races, it's been Mick that's had the problems. It's been Mick that's been smashing into walls. But wow, Russell will start. Ooh. So Russell at least 14th then. So let's jot this down for myself. So we've got Stroll in 19th. We've got Mazepin in 18th. 17th, we've got Raikkonen. Oh, Raikkonen also sort of down there in the dumps. And Latifi. And then obviously Mick is going to end up 15th, isn't he? Because we're not going to be able to continue on any further. Wow. That's very harsh. That is very harsh indeed on Stroll. Didn't really get the opportunity. Raikkonen, again, I'm not super surprised maybe that Raikkonen's down there, but a little bit surprised. A little bit surprised. Russell does love a Q2 though, doesn't he? At this point. When do we just agree that Russell will continually always be in Q2, basically? Wow. So we've got our bottom 6 there because Mick will... yeah, Mick's going to end up 15th. And he looks good. He looked all right. Oh, it's a hefty little whack he's had on the wall, though. Ouch. Goes across the blue, though. So the blue doesn't slow you down as much as the red around the track here. So at least it was in a slower area of the track, because it only had the blue around it. Yeah, poor Stroll. Poor Stroll. Didn't really get an opportunity there. Got his lap time deleted. A Haas in Q2? Yes, but not really in Q2. He's in Q2 for 15th only. He's in Q2 for technicalities. But yeah, not really in Q2, but in Q2. But it's nice to see Mick sticking it into Q2, technically, even if he did then cause the crash, which made sure he was in Q2. If you know what I mean. Driving the house is probably a nightmare. Yeah, probably. I mean, they haven't done anything on it since last year, right? That's the point. They are not making any changes to the Haas car. They're solely focused on 2022. So it's tricky being a Haas driver right now, knowing that this is the car you've got for all year. We're not going to really make any advancements on that. That's just going to be it. I wouldn't say Ferrari used red flags to get poles. I think that's a bit harsh. Like, a lot of the red flags haven't really been down to them. But yeah, Haas have been lucky to get into Q2, and obviously Mick hasn't crashed on purpose. I don't think we can say. I know some people said that about Leclerc pole in Monaco. Like, oh, he's crashed on purpose to guarantee the fact he's got that pole position. I don't think that was true. And neither do I think it's true that Mick has stuck it in the wall so that he gets into Q2. That's a little bit abstract, a little bit obscure, in my opinion. Oh, Haas are amazing. I made a video on Haas earlier on in the year just because I was so surprised at how far they'd fallen. Haas were like a midfield team that were fighting for points consistently, podiums fairly often, podiums occasionally. Like they were in and amongst the really good cars. Very good midfield team were Haas, and it's just broken apart over the past of the sort of last 3 years, you could say, over the last like 3.5 years. Obviously, they had that whole rich energy thing. Pretty awful for Haas over the course of the last few years. But yeah, it started really well. It started amazingly well for Haas. They started off their Formula One career as a really good team, and had some really good finishes, some really good points finishes, some really good weekends. But yeah, unfortunately now they're not looking. Oh right, I see. Yeah. Let's see what the new regulations bring. I think the new regulations will definitely shake up the grid a little bit. Shaking up the grid a little bit, I think, is warranted at this point, to be honest. I think people are bored of... It's a little bit like Juventus winning Serie A for like 9 years on the bounce. It's a little bit like PSG winning Ligue 1 for like however long on the bounce. You don't really... like in the British media anyway, you don't really hear about it overly often. Like when Bayern Munich win the title, it's just like they won it again. Whereas like this year, we've had Inter Milan win the Serie A title. We've had Lille win Ligue 1. And there's been a lot more talk about it. There's been a lot more talk about how that sort of changed the dynamic of those leagues and how it might change the dynamic of European football a little bit. I think the same thing, right? Mercedes have won championship after championship after championship. People get a little bit bored of it, a little bit repetitive. So just a little bit of a mix-up, I think, is warranted at this point in the season. Let's have a gander. We're waiting there. So Gasly's going to be first out onto the grid. Oh, we are one subscriber away from 1,800. So if somebody wants to just hit that button for me, that'd be chef's kiss good. Mick is more like Ralph than Michael. Oh, S King. That is a hefty statement you chucked in the chat there. I'd like to know what people think of that in the chat. I think it's difficult to know. You got to remember, he's coming off the back of an F2 championship. He's a good driver, is Mick. And it seemed like he was fairly comfortable in the Haas early on in the season. Sort of over the course of this sort of later bit of the season, maybe struggling a little bit. Yeah, an awkward one, I would say. An awkward one for Mick. Because he's always going to be compared to Michael, right? And it's not really his fault that he's going to be compared to Michael. But he's got quite a lot to live up to because of that. And again, that's not really his fault. Just the way it is, unfortunately, for him. What do we think of the new thumbnail, by the way? I asked earlier on in the chat. I'd get your guys' opinion. Better, worse? Not worth the extra 45 minutes that I put into it. I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Yeah, the new rules can definitely flip it on its head. Like, completely flip it on its head, to be honest. Just the new regulations could be anything could happen. I think the new regulations come in. I think we're going to see teams like Williams or Haas that are really pushing for this season. I don't know, maybe come a little bit more competitive. I think Ferrari have put quite a lot into the 2022 car they've been talking about. We've got Red Bull completely with a new engine manufacturer. They're obviously going solo. They're sort of moving away from Honda a little bit. They're going to be working on they're going to be the only one sort of, or they're going to be a brand new team sort of creating their own engine for that season. So I'm just looking at the tyre compounds that people are on. After Seto said that Russell's the only one on softs. Is that true? It is true. Everyone else obviously thinks they can get a good enough time on the mediums to be able to get into Q1. Everybody's eking around the final couple of corners. And now Hamilton, let's fly, opens the DRS, and here we go. Oh, it's Valtteri Bottas. I thought it was Hamilton. Oh, Hamilton's just behind him. That's why they cut the camera between the two. F1 never took off here in America. Too predictable, and plus we have NASCAR and IndyCar here. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. It does seem like Formula One is quite a European thing. What will Red Bull name its engine? I don't think Red Bull are very original when they come up with names, to be honest. Like if you look at over the course of Red Bull, you've got Red Bull Racing, you've got Red Bull New York, obviously for the football team. What have you got? You've got RB Salzburg, because they couldn't call themselves Red Bull. You've got RB Leipzig as well. Again, because they weren't allowed to call themselves Red Bull, but they've still got the RB in there. Yeah, I think it would probably just be Red Bull engine or like Red Bull power. It's not going to be something incredibly amazing. Oh, you're from America. That's fair enough. Just not a massive thing over there. To be fair, as you said, you've already got your kind of individualized motorsports. Like NASCAR is just not a thing anywhere else, is it? It's one of those Americanized things. I don't know anybody who's watched a NASCAR race or ever. I don't know anybody who follows NASCAR. You know what I mean? But it's a massive thing in America, isn't it? So just one of those things. But a bit like you could argue baseball is a similar sort of thing. American football, obviously. There are just different sports in America that I think have a much wider reach in America and American audiences than they do anywhere else. But you could argue that about any country, really. You could argue that about like Canada and hockey. You could argue that about Europe and sort of volleyball and things like that are massive over there. Yeah, tricky. 10 minutes to go then. Got Verstappen, Sainz, Bottas, Gasly, Hamilton, Leclerc, Vettel, Ricciardo, Gio, and Russell. Oh, and Sergio Perez just goes quickest to completely rejig that. And our bottom five at the moment, Russell, Norris, Ocon, Alonso, Mick. Obviously, Mick's going to end up 15th. Nothing he can do about that. I think we're looking at the Alpines. I'd be surprised if the Alpines don't get at least one of the cars into the top 10. I'd also be surprised if Norris ends up down there in the bottom five. So Norris has no time set at the moment. Because his time was deleted. Track limits again on turn 6. So turn 6 seems to be that one this weekend. Obviously, there's track limits all over the gaff when it comes to this track. There's track limits regulations in 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and 9. So a lot of track limits to be looked at over the course of the race weekend this weekend. But yeah, it is Norris and Stroll have both had their lap times deleted because of turn 6. Actually, is turn 6 even one of those? 1, 2, 3, 5. Are they doing 6 as well? Did I not add 6 to the list? My goodness. Wow. Maybe they're just doing track limits at every corner. The article I read said it was 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 and 9, which were the ones to watch. But actually, yeah, Stroll's was turn 6, and now Norris has been turn 6. So they're obviously just being hot on it every single corner, effectively. You like F1 because of the engineering. Yeah, I mean, that's the main thing, right? These are the fastest cars in the world. I don't think we can sort of look any further than that. They are the fastest cars. These are probably, I would argue, the best drivers. You're looking at least 15, 16 of these being the absolute pinnacle of drivers in the world at this point. But yeah, I think the US will slowly take an increased look at F1, especially next year when maybe it's a little bit different. Oh yeah, definitely if a Ford or a Chevy made an F1 team. Well, I mean, that was kind of the point with Haas, right? Gene Haas moving into Formula One was supposed to open up a little bit of the drive. Ocon is the most underrated driver on the grid. Ooh. Yeah, maybe. Ocon is very good. He's had a very good season so far, and obviously I'd say he's warranted an extension for Alpine. Has he warranted a 3-year extension? Maybe you could argue slightly differently, because obviously 3 years is a long time in Formula One. And if Alpine are sort of dedicating themselves, and Hamilton goes fastest. Wow. Yeah, if they're dedicating that much of their future to Ocon, they've obviously got a lot of hope for him and a lot of value. Here's how we... Soul track. Yeah, there's been a lot of people saying gravel traps and obviously making sure that you don't have a large runoff areas, but then you've got just, tricky. It's tricky, right? Because if you have gravel traps, then if you make a mistake, that's it. Your weekend is effectively over. Or not in free practice or whatever, but in qualifying in the race, obviously, if there's gravel traps, it's so hard to get out of them. Ooh, and Alonso saying he's going to go for a second run. Does it take the pressure off Ocon, or does it put the pressure on Ocon when it's a 3-year contract? Because they're saying a lot, right? They're saying a lot there. With a 3-year contract, they're effectively saying... Ooh. Oh, what? Alonso's been called into the weighbridge. Wow. Has he got enough time to get another lap in? Yeah, he should do. Interesting. Interesting. Wow. So there's quite a lot going on, actually. The McLaren's coming in, asking if Daniel Ricciardo wants a change of tyres. He seems a little bit hesitant as to whether he does or doesn't. Alonso's on the weighbridge. So let's hope that they can weigh that car and get him off the weighbridge in enough time for him to be able to go out again. He's currently in 8th place, is Ocon. Is Alonso. Ocon actually is in 11th place, as we've been discussing Ocon and the pressure that is on him now at Alpine. You could argue yes, because they've sort of committed themselves, there's less pressure on him, or you could argue there's more pressure on him because they've committed long term to his future, and if he doesn't start to perform, they start to look a little bit silly. Hello, Julius, mate, you alright? FMJ, no one's winning in that we're qualifying today. So I guess you're winning if you're in the top 10 at this point, because you then get yourself into the next round of qualifying if you're in the top 10. So at the moment, Ocon, Vettel, Giovinazzi, Russell and Mick Schumacher, you could argue, are the guys losing. And the other losers that we've had are Latifi, Raikkonen, Mazepin, Stroll and Tsunoda. Leclerc might go out in Q2. Maybe. Will I celebrate if Red Bull restore parity in F1 by defrauding Mercedes? Will I celebrate? Maybe, you know. I think it would be interesting. Only if it goes down to the wire. I think if they can keep it going throughout the season, it can be close. It could be a proper battle of wits between the two. Then yeah, I think that if they deserve it, I'll definitely celebrate in some way. I won't be like ecstatic about it. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not like a Red Bull fan or anything. But yeah, I would go absolutely mental if McLaren won a championship or Gasly. But yeah, apart from that, a little bit less worried about it. So yeah, Vettel doesn't have another set of softs. Ooh, that's interesting. Maybe the hard tyre is quite good for the race, though. You've seen everyone using softs and mediums at the moment. Maybe everyone's thinking probably running the hard tyre for quite a long time tomorrow. Yes, Q2 right now. Q2 at the moment. I don't know. Bottas is 5th at the moment. And again, we're not into Q3 yet, guys. We're not into Q3. You got to remember, these times are not the best of the best, right? You got to remember, some of these drivers, if you're a Hamilton, a Verstappen, Perez, Bottas, at this point, you're sort of pretty much guaranteed to get into Q3. So you don't have to go for your absolute limit. You can hold a little bit back in some places, right? But I know what you mean. It's a little bit disappointing for Bottas in that he was doing so well in free practice over the course of this weekend. It looks like he might not be able to convert that into much in terms of qualifying. You're a fan of Red Bull? Oh, out of convenience. Yeah, I do love Perez, to be fair. I do really like Perez. I think just because he's sort of become a stalwart of F1 at this point, right? Perez is just... I feel like if we had an F1 season without Perez, it would be weird. Because he's just so unanimous with Formula 1. Ooh. Leclerc is in 10th at the moment then. Can he improve his time? Personally, I don't think that Norris is in the World Drivers' Championship fight for this season. I think he's in the fight for... I'd say if Norris finished 4th, even if Norris finished 5th, he's doing very, very well for himself, isn't he? If he finishes 5th... So let's see. If Norris finishes behind Bottas and... I don't know. He's in the fight with Leclerc, right? So if he finishes 4th, 5th, I'd say 6th, he'd maybe be a little bit disappointed at this point just because of how well he started the season. I don't know if you... At the start of the season, if you're Norris, where do you think you're really getting? Oh, Vettel doesn't improve. Charles Leclerc goes 9th fastest and Sainz stays 4th. Let's sort of focus in on Q2 then, just while it's finishing up. Giovinazzi doesn't improve. Russell doesn't improve. Bottas goes fastest. There you go, mate. You wanted Bottas. There we are. 2 tenths faster. Can Ocon make it into Q3 then? DRS is open. Ocon puts himself 11th. Stays 11th. Is Russell out on a lap? I don't think so. Oh. Wow. Ocon missed, yeah. Ocon did indeed miss out. Ricciardo. 10th fastest. Very, very happy to sort of coast themselves in. Vettel. I think this is more where Aston Martin really are at this point in the season, to be honest. We've had a couple of races where Vettel has been incredibly good. But I think realistically, this is where they are. I don't think they are really a top 5 team, you know what I mean? I don't think... If Vettel got another top 5 finish this weekend, we'd be looking at some absolutely incredible driving from him. But I think this is realistically, you know, if Aston Martin can get in and amongst the points moderately regularly, then they're doing pretty well. You know what I mean? They're not fighting the battle that some of us want them to be. Or the battle, at least maybe they thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. And Ocon was 11th. Let me just update this for you. Lovely, lovely people. Save as. Dink, dink, dink. There you go. So Ocon 11th, Vettel 12th, Gio 13th, Russell 14th. Mick gets himself into Q2 for the first time by shunting it into the wall. 15th, Latifi 16th, Raikkonen 17th, Mazepin 18th, Stroll 19th, and Tsunoda 20th. Is it bad that I feel like Aston Martin are the champions of the off-season? I mean, maybe, yeah. They did look... I mean, I think it's just last year that Racing Point car looked very good, didn't it? And maybe gave us a little bit of a weird perspective on where we thought Aston Martin might be. But I don't know. It's difficult because yes, Aston Martin would have put in so much money this year, so you'd have thought they'd have been maybe a little bit more competitive, but you know, they're in and amongst. If we look at the drivers and constructors there at the bottom, would Aston Martin be that gutted if they finish 5th? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think we were ever in the mindset that they were going to be ahead of a Mercedes or a Red Bull. Maybe we could have argued that they could have taken a similar step to Ferrari seem to have had. So you got to remember, Ferrari last year finished 6th. And they've sort of taken quite a bit of a step forward. But yeah, McLaren then have also taken a step forward. AlphaTauri are always in the mix in those middle teams. So, you know, Aston Martin are thereabouts. I think they're about where I expected them to be. And I think Vettel getting into Q2 and nearing Q3. If he can get into Q3, I don't know, every other race, I think we're looking at an all right return from Aston Martin, to be honest. How did Yuki end up 20th? Ditched it into the wall after turn 1. He did one turn and then ditched it into the wall, unfortunately. So yeah, it was unfortunate, that one. Oh, what have I done? There we go. Stop being stuck with a copy and paste of Mercedes. I mean, yeah. They could have done. I think they'd have probably been in a little bit of trouble if they continued on. If you haven't seen the Drive to Survive episode that's all about that is well worth a watch. There's a good episode of Drive to Survive on obviously like the controversy of the Racing Point versus everyone else on the grid. But that was entertaining, and it backfired a little bit on them last year, didn't it? Because they struggled to actually build a car after they were sort of put under a little bit of scrutiny by everybody else. Although the points still kept coming, so tricky. Maybe next year they'll copy Red Bull. Yeah, probably. Although Red Bull are going to have a complete different engine, so it's tricky to know. Does anyone know? You know the AlphaTauri team? Are they going to have the Red Bull engine? I guess so, right? Oh, do I have any racers' signatures? I don't, actually. I have some like old Lotus memorabilia from when Lotus were in Formula One, maybe, what's that, like 10 years ago now, actually. Yeah, when I was a kid, I went to like a Formula One event for Lotus that was sort of in Norfolk, and picked up some like cool Lotus stuff from that, but and met a couple of the drivers, but didn't get any signatures or anything, unfortunately. It was dumb of me. I was a little child. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just sort of happy to be there. Oh, let's have a gander. Also, I feel like I should plug like my Twitter and stuff whilst we're here, just because loads of people were asking about that in the 1,000 subscriber video that I did. Just yeah, plug my Twitter and stuff. It's all in the links. Hello, Sally. You're new here. Welcome. Do I go live during the races? Yes. So I do qualifying and the races every single Formula One weekend since Imola this year, because I missed Bahrain because I didn't have some of the equipment that I needed to start at the beginning of the season when I wanted to start, which was a shame. Where would we be if we'd done another live stream at this point? We're already nearing 1,800 subscribers. If you'd like to be 1,800, the time is now, because I'm on 1,799. So that would be good. Leclerc looks very slow compared to Sainz. He does look slow on this track, to be fair. Whether he's just keeping a little bit behind, but I don't know. Yuki's crashes are getting tiring. Yeah, he's crashed in a lot of qualifying sessions now, right? If we think 7 races, 3 of them come to mind: Imola, Baku, and this time out. Has he crashed any other times? Don't think so. I might be wrong. But even 3 out of 7 is not great as a return. Yeah. So I've got 3. We've got 3 races in a row now. So we're at what's called a triple header for some reason. So we've got France, Austria, and Austria again for the next 3 Sundays. So tomorrow, the next Sunday, and the next Sunday. No gaps, no breaks, no weeks off. Triple header, bang, bang, bang. 3 races in, and just go for it. Then we'll get a real insight. Because we'll be 9 races into the season after these 3 weeks. 9 races in, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. FJ Walmart, thank you for subscribing for the algorithm. Yeah, the algorithm has been good and bad to me. I mean, it's been incredible for me. I wanted, so my goal for the season was to hit like 100 subscribers, and I'm humbled that like it has just jumped to a level that I never thought I'd even get to ever, let alone within, what has it been, 6-7 races or something ridiculous. Crazy. And thank you, Sally, as well. You're a legend. You're absolutely amazing. Alonso said he's the best driver on the grid, so he should get pole right now. I mean, I feel like if you're a Formula One driver, you've got to kind of believe you're the best driver on the grid, whether you are or aren't. So, if anything, I'm actually quite happy that he said that. It shows that he's got confidence in himself, right? It shows that, yes, maybe he's a little bit blind to what's going on, but I think you've got to be, if you're a sports person at the absolute elite level, you've almost got to believe that you're the best, or that you can become the best at least, you know, or that on your day you can outperform the best in any sport. Otherwise, there's just no point in turning up, right? If you didn't believe, if you're a tennis player and you didn't believe that you could beat Djokovic or Federer, no point in playing. Absolutely no point in playing. But you've got to believe that on your day you can be the best. So it's fair enough. Gasly, track limits on turn 6. I'm going to have to add turn 6 to my little track board diagram. Because turn 6, everybody is just getting held up on turn 6. And it's one of the corners that they didn't really highlight in the FIA stuff. So in the FIA stuff, there was a real emphasis on turn 3, turn 5, and turn 8, I think, were like the 3 main ones. And then 1 and 2 and 9 were sort of added in. But now 6 seems to be the one that is just there. Oh, what would your thoughts be on qualifying 4 for the top 5 or 3? And they get 2 laps without tow. It'd definitely be interesting. I think it's just how, at the moment, qualifying is quite nice in that it slots into an hour. I think that's how they've sort of done it. Oh, race control. Yeah, it was indeed. Turn 6, Gasly. I think just if they extended qualifying any further, and it was like more than an hour, let's say they stretch it out to an hour and a half, I think some people you're losing. You got to remember, a lot of people have a lot to do. And even the races being like sometimes 3 or 4 hours long, if there's a red flag or something, can sometimes be jarring for people. So if you can keep it to an hour for qualifying and then like, 2 and a bit hours for the race, I think you're doing the right thing. Although it'd be interesting to see how sprint qualifying works, and whether they sort of decide on anything in particular when it comes to sprint qualifying, and how that'll work statistically and how that'll work like analytically with the drivers as well. That I'm looking forward to. I think Silverstone's the first sprint qualifying, isn't it? So yeah. Turn 6 is triggering. Alonso is, yeah, you could argue, is probably a little bit delusional, but again, just gotta believe. You've gotta believe. Oh, Leclerc on the radio. Leclerc says he's really struggling, and it does look like he's struggling from his time. He is 1.2 seconds off Verstappen's time. Wow. 1.2 seconds. That is not good. I mean, Hamilton is 0.8 off of... Oh, sorry. Bottas is 0.8 off of Verstappen. Hamilton's 0.4. Verstappen's time looks pretty good at this point. Just wait, he's going to pull the pole. No. Leclerc only gets pole if he has the best time of the first like iteration of fast laps, and then there's a red flag. That's how Leclerc gets pole. He puts himself on provisional pole, and then there's a red flag. That's how... I don't think the science spin in practice was anything to go off of, really. Oh, yeah, he's just gone off on turn 6 as Gasly there. Tricky. Oh, he's not far off. They are... They're like, I don't know. They're being a bit harsh on turn 6, I think. I think turn 6 is going to be interesting, especially if somebody in this last sort of sprint to the line in qualifying. It'd be interesting to see if we actually see a finish to qualifying. We haven't in the last 2 races. We've both races have ended, or both qualifying sessions last time out and the time before in Monaco have ended with a red flag. Ooh. Max Verstappen, possibly damage on his left front on the front wing. Nothing that I can see, but maybe he's just feeling a little bit or moving a little bit around, maybe. Wow. Hamilton's cornering is apparently where he is losing out on time to Verstappen, according to the statistics that are up on the screen. We've got 4 minutes left then. It'd be interesting to see who gets pole. I went for Hamilton pole and then Bottas second, Verstappen third is how I can see this sort of playing out. Here we go. Gasly is out. Let's go. Previous polls in France. Let's have a look. Hamilton, Raikkonen, Massa, Schumacher. So a mix of drivers in the last 5 poles from the previous 5 French Grand Prix. But Max does look good for it at the moment. 4 tenths above Hamilton, 6 tenths above Perez, 8 tenths above Bottas. And then everybody else is on an out lap as Perez just comes out of the pits. And the 2 Mercedes I can see just behind them as well. So everybody is going to be out on the track with 2 minutes and 50 seconds to play for. You think Norris will get another P5 tomorrow? That'd be very good for Norris. he's having a really, really good season as it is, but another P5 would be really, really good. Really, really good. 2 minutes 30 left then. Let's watch the track. It seems like Gasly is first out on track. He is indeed. He's then followed by the Ferraris and the Alpine of Alonso. Then the 2 McLarens have booked themselves in just behind the Ferraris. Then the 2 Red Bulls. And the final cars that will cross the line are going to be the 2 Mercedes guys. So it's going to be interesting to see, can Verstappen improve on his time, and then both Mercedes cars afterwards, can they put in a little bit of a bid, a bit of a fight for pole position, as we're on board with Sergio Perez with 1 minute and 45 seconds left in Q3. Perez coming round turn 9 and up towards turn 10. So actually Max Verstappen out in front of Sergio Perez because Max Verstappen's just coming around turn 10. And it's going to be Gasly crossing the line first. So Gasly's just come around turn 15. Hamilton on the radio asking about his lap compared to Max's. So, you know, Hamilton is keeping a watchful eye on Max Verstappen's times. Alonso now goes across the start-finish line. So we've got a minute left as the Red Bulls are coming around turn 12, 13. Bottas has just joined this little snake of cars that is going around turns 13, 14 now. So we've got both Red Bulls and both Mercedes pulling a little bit of a pack between them. Max Verstappen going first. Perez then also goes for it. Perez now coming around turn 15 and Max over the line to start his final flying lap. Please get pole, Max. Don't let my cousin. There's a Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes bandwagon having glory and arrogance. Poor kid. Did you go-kart race as a kid? I didn't. I've been go-kart racing a couple of times. I'd love to go more often, to be honest. So we've got 14 seconds left, and Gasly is just finishing up his time. Verstappen goes purple in Sector 1. It's looking good for Verstappen already. Perez a little bit further behind. Can anyone else beat Max Verstappen in this first sector? Because already Verstappen is going fast. Oh, and Hamilton is going very, very quick. Gasly comes over the line and goes 4th fastest at this moment in time. So Verstappen sets a purple middle sector. Leclerc behind Gasly in 5th place. So Gasly is ahead of the Ferrari of Leclerc. Hamilton goes fastest in the first sector though. Wow. Sainz goes 3rd fastest. Wow. So Sainz goes 3rd fastest. Alonso goes 8th. Norris then goes 8th actually. And Alonso down into 9th. Ricciardo's going to come over the line next. And Verstappen finally. Ricciardo only goes 10th. This is what we need to know. Verstappen does improve a 29.9. Perez next over the line. Perez is going to find this really tricky to get close to. Does go 2nd though. And half a second down actually. Wow. Next to cross Bottas. 2nd fastest. And now only Hamilton left to come over. Hamilton the fastest man. Oh, and Hamilton goes 2nd. So it is Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Sainz, Gasly, Leclerc, Norris, Alonso, Ricciardo. Max is number 1. Pole position for Max Verstappen. 4th place for his teammate Perez. Hamilton and Bottas split the Red Bulls. Hamilton second, Bottas third, Sainz fifth, Gasly sixth, Leclerc in the Ferrari seventh, Norris, Alonso, Ricciardo round out that top 10. Wow. Really good lap from Verstappen as well. Improved by an entire 10th of a second from his lap beforehand. A really, really good lap from Max Verstappen. Looked like Hamilton might be in with a chance when he went fastest in the first sector. But then sector 2, sector 3, Verstappen was very, very quick. And Hamilton just couldn't quite keep up the pace. It's going to be good tomorrow. I can see a very aggressive tactic from Mercedes. They're going to have to go big to get in front of Max when he is looking this quick. They're really going to have to go for it. And, this track isn't known for lots and lots of overtaking. There's overtaking opportunities here and there, but it's very, very tricky. So Max is going to have to be very defensive. Hamilton's going to have to be very, very aggressive to see if he can get into that first place above Verstappen. Let me just quickly write this down. So it was Verstappen from Hamilton, from Bottas. Ooh, Hamilton saying that he thought that was a really good lap. And you know what? I can't disagree with him. It was a good lap. It was a good lap. Leclerc in 7th. Norris. Alonso in 9th. And Ricciardo in 10th. Wow. How close could they get? And it actually seems that Perez is not quite as quick as maybe I was hoping. Bottas, though, has managed to get in and amongst those top 3 again. Bottas has been really struggling over the last few weeks, so it's nice to see him move towards that top spot. And here we go. Let me update this for you and pop it up. The French Grand Prix tomorrow is going to be good. Oh, there we go. So Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas, Perez, Sainz, Gasly, Leclerc, Norris, Ricciardo, Vettel. It's tricky because now we've got a real battle between the Red Bulls and the Mercedes. Both of those Mercedes cars in the middle of both of those Red Bulls. It's going to be interesting to see tactically how they go for that. It's going to be very interesting to see. Funny how the chassis stopped working. Yeah, they did swap the chassis. Doesn't seem to have had much effect though, does it? Hamilton still slightly ahead of Bottas. But maybe that was the difference between Hamilton getting second and pole. Shall we add that into the mix? Yeah, Red Bull are going to have to make... They're really going to have to push, right? They're going to have to make Mercedes race this season, which is really nice to see. But I think tomorrow we could see Hamilton be very aggressive. I think Hamilton needs to go out tomorrow and really stamp his authority on this. If he's going to overtake Max in the Drivers' Championship, he's really going to need to push tomorrow because it is a tricky track to overtake on. So he's going to have to really, really go for it. Thanks for the qualifying watch long. No problem whatsoever. I will see you at the race tomorrow. Appreciate you coming by. Yeah, unfortunately, Lewis just wasn't, or Lewis, or whatever you put, wasn't fast enough. No, 2 tenths off. Really, really close, though. Max did improve, I think is the thing. Max came out and improved again on his time. And just being able to improve again, that one more improvement, that little tenth here and there, just really pushed him that little bit further. But I think Lewis will be fairly happy with a P2. Not ecstatic, he'd have loved to get another pole position, but he's not too far away from Verstappen at this point. And he's had 2 really tough results when it's come to Monaco and then Baku. Obviously, Baku was a mistake that he made. Monaco was just because he just couldn't get past Gasly. Hamilton's had a couple of really tough races. So at least being in and amongst those top drivers again, you know, being able to fight for victories like he was last time out before the mistake, I think he'll just be happy to be there. You're hoping that Red Bull beat Mercedes this season. That is fair enough. I think that is fair enough. Alonso takes Daniel's seat. Daniel goes to Alonso's old team. Alonso is ahead. Yep, pretty much. Pretty much, yeah. Ricciardo's just struggling, isn't he? He's just really, really struggling. Again, he's not struggling. I think struggling is a strong word that people have been using for Daniel Ricciardo's pace. He's been consistent. He's been in the points. He's been picking up continual points positions and finishes over the course of the whole season so far. It's just he hasn't had a standout race. He hasn't had a standout podium like Norris has had. He hasn't had a standout victory or a standout just anything really. He's just had he's had 6 races where he's just gone a bit under the radar. And he's had 6 races where it just hasn't quite been amazing. And therefore Ricciardo's just gone under the radar a little bit. And yeah, it's been tricky for him and tricky in general just with the car, getting to know a new team, understanding the new team. But tomorrow is set up for a pretty good race, right? So we've got, obviously, the Mercedes in between the Red Bulls. That gives us some interesting insight into how Mercedes and how Red Bull are going to look at strategies for tomorrow. So Perez's job tomorrow is effectively to help keep Max at number 1, and whether he can do that from 4th place, whether he can have a real impact on the Mercedes in front of him, will be very interesting to see. Again, we've got Sainz and Leclerc, Norris, Ricciardo, Alonso, Gasly, that sort of battle. It'll be interesting to see if Ocon can get up into the top 10, Vettel can get up into the top 10. Be interesting to see where Stroll and Tsunoda end up, sort of starting a little bit further back than you'd really imagine them to be. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I thought Ricciardo would probably take a little bit of a step up today into Q3, which is obviously better than the last time out, but still behind Lando. And I think tomorrow, if he can get ahead of Lando, otherwise it's going to be tricky for him to really make an impact over this triple header and get ahead of Lando. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to be live with you guys 1:30 tomorrow. I think it's a 2:00 race. Gasly 6th. God, if Gasly can get another top 5 finish, that'd be good. Especially considering I bloody predicted it. So this is my prediction for tomorrow. We will see if it comes true tomorrow. I'm going to leave you guys there. Thank you so much for all of your support. If you could subscribe, if you could leave a like, that would absolutely help me out to no end and help us to just get more people in here, talk more Formula One, get to know some more people. How do I feel about Tsunoda? Do you think he'll be there next season? Going the way that it's going now and knowing that Red Bull are cutthroat when it comes to getting rid of their drivers, no. In a word, no. What's it? 3 crashes in qualifying for Tsunoda so far, 2 points finishes in 6 races. And if you're comparing him to the drivers in and around him, so we're saying that the AlphaTauri car is equivalent to Aston Martin Alpine in terms of their pace, looking at the 3 in the Constructors' Championship there. But if you look at Gasly's points compared to Tsunoda, if you look at Vettel's points compared to Tsunoda, it's tricky. It's tricky to see that. Obviously, Stroll is there as well, but Stroll is a bit of a weird one because last time out he should have got some points possibly. Yeah, and also Stroll obviously has got the help that his dad effectively co-owns the team with Aston Martin, has paid for all of the Formula One team to basically build a brand new factory and everything like that. So he's in a bit more of a luxurious position than Tsunoda. It'd be interesting to see what Tsunoda can do from the back of the grid tomorrow. Can Tsunoda get into the points tomorrow? I think then we're looking at an incredible, incredible drive from Tsunoda. But I'm going to leave you there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow for the French Grand Prix for Gasly on the podium again. Calling it now early. Early call for Gasly on the podium. See you then.